one thing I noticed about the city of Cairo is the prevalence of ashwayet. And in Arabic, the word ashwayet means haphazard. In Egypt, it's used to refer to slums or unplanned districts or areas. And as some estimate that as many as half of Cairo's population of 20 million people live in these ashwayet. And these have risen in recent decades due to urbanization and an inability to find affordable housing. And one of the biggest problems with these areas is that they're not recognized as legitimate by the government. And so they lack in a lot of basic infrastructure. And this includes water, electricity, paved roads, sewage, schools, or health facilities. And in some of these areas, these facilities have been provided by international donations or non-governmental organizations, but in many others, people struggle on a daily basis to secure some of these basic needs. So for example, something as basic as hot water, in some of these areas, this involves a very long process of gathering and burning garbage or other materials and heating one pot of water at a time. But on a visit to an area, Darb al-Ahmar, in the historic old center of Cairo, I found another solution to this problem. Sitting atop of a building was a homemade solar water heater, and I was really intrigued by the idea. The solar water heater presented the perfect solution. It effectively heated water, it was made out of cheap and affordable materials, and it relied on an inexhaustible and clean energy source. And so I was really intrigued and wanted to learn more. So after I graduated, I came back to Cairo on a Fulbright scholarship with the goal of learning more on the grassroots use of solar technology and developing my own project. And the more I learned, the more fascinated I became. I found that the Arab world lies on the Sun Belt and is one of the most ideal places in the world for solar energy. Despite this, very little is being done to take advantage of this resource. There are, however, some very creative projects, including the one that I saw in Darb al-Ahmar. So I went back to this area to learn more about the project. I talked to the families who are using the heaters and found that those using it are really benefiting from the use of the technology. One woman told me how excited she was the first time she opened the sink in her she opened the faucet in her bathroom sink and hot water came out. But there were some problems with this model, and one was that when heaters fell into disrepair, there was no one to maintain them, and the second was that other families who were interested in heaters had no way of purchasing them. And this was mostly because the organization that had installed these heaters had simply aimed to construct a limited number of solar heaters. And so when I designed my own project, I took this into account. And my project involves 3 phases. And the first phase is awareness sessions. So basically, after selecting a community, we would raise awareness in that community on solar energy, renewable energy, and how it can be used on a practical level. The second phase of the project involves training sessions. And this consists of selecting about a dozen people from the community and training them in the construction of the solar water heaters. And the third phase of the project is establishing a business for the construction and maintenance and repair of the water heaters. And this business would employ those trained in stage 2 of the project. And hopefully, stage 1 of the project would allow the community members to become familiar enough with the technology to be interested in purchasing it once the business is running. So for me, this was a sustainable solution to encouraging the construction and use of solar technologies. And at this point of the project, I am expanding a team and gathering funding and hope to begin implementation within the coming months. Thank you for listening.